It started as a joke, or at least that's what I told myself. We were sitting around the dinner table with friends, laughter bouncing off the walls, wine glasses half empty, plates still warm. I had no idea that one careless line from me would change everything that night, and the way I saw my husband forever. Aaron and I had been married for 9 years. From the outside, we looked like the picture of happiness. A cozy home, stable jobs, vacations every summer. People assumed we had it all figured out, but behind those polite smiles and perfect photos, something had faded. We'd become polite strangers who shared a bed but not a life. He buried himself in work, and I hid my loneliness behind sarcasm. That evening, our friends Leo and Nora had invited us for dinner. The conversation flowed easily, work, travel, funny stories, until Nora teased Leo about forgetting their anniversary. Everyone laughed, and somehow the attention turned toward me. "Careful, Nora," I said, swirling my wine. "If Aaron forgets ours next year, I might just get myself a new husband." The table burst into laughter. It was supposed to be harmless, a throwaway line to keep the banter going. But when I looked at Aaron, he wasn't laughing. His jaw was tight, his eyes cold. For a moment, our gazes locked, and something unspoken passed between us, like a door quietly closing. The laughter around us began to fade, replaced by a heavy silence. He set his fork down and leaned back in his chair. "You should," he said flatly. "Maybe then you'd finally realize it isn't the husband that's the problem." The air froze. Nora's hand stopped halfway to her glass. Leo looked between us, unsure whether to laugh or look away. My heart pounded. My throat went dry. "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked, trying to sound amused. Aaron didn't blink. "It means you've spent years blaming me for everything wrong in your life. Maybe a new husband won't fix what's actually broken." You could have heard a pin drop. My cheeks burned. The laughter died in my throat. He didn't raise his voice, and he didn't need to. His calmness cut deeper than anger ever could. Everyone started shifting, pretending to check their phones or take another bite, anything to escape the tension. I wanted to defend myself, but the words wouldn't come. That single moment felt like our entire marriage unraveling right there, in front of everyone. The car ride home was silent. Streetlights slid across Aaron's face as he drove, calm, distant, unreadable. I stared out the window, replaying that moment in my head again and again, wishing I could take it back. When we pulled into the driveway, he didn't wait for me to speak. He stepped out, unlocked the door, and went straight to the living room. I followed quietly, unsure whether to apologize or stay quiet. He poured himself a drink and sat on the couch, elbows on his knees, eyes fixed on the floor. "You think it's funny, don't you?" he said finally, not looking up. "Turning our marriage into a joke for other people?" I swallowed hard. "It was just a joke, Aaron. You're overreacting." He let out a bitter laugh. "Overreacting? You humiliated me in front of our friends, Maya. Do you even realize how often you do that? How often you make me the punchline?" His voice wasn't angry, but it was tired. And somehow, that hurt more than shouting ever could. I wanted to explain, to tell him it wasn't like that. But before I could, he looked up. His eyes weren't cold anymore. They were filled with exhaustion. "You don't try to reach me, Maya," he said quietly. "You try to wound me. Every sarcastic comment, every jab. It's like you want me to feel small so you can feel in control." His words struck something deep inside me. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Because somewhere, buried under pride and habit, I knew he was right. He stood, walked past me toward the hallway. "You don't need a new husband," he said, voice low. "You need a mirror." And just like that, he disappeared into the bedroom, leaving me in the quiet, trembling. The weight of his words lingered in the air long after he was gone. "You need a mirror." I sat there on the couch, frozen, staring at the empty glass he'd left behind. It was strange how silence could feel heavier than shouting, how it filled every corner of the room like a ghost that refused to leave. I thought about our early days, the late-night talks, the laughter that used to come so easily. I remembered how Aaron used to look at me, as if I was his entire world. Somewhere between the deadlines, the tired nights, and the quiet arguments, that look had disappeared. Maybe I had too. When I finally stood up, the house felt cold. I walked down the hallway and paused outside our bedroom door. I could see the faint outline of his body turned away from me. I wanted to go in, to apologize, but I was afraid he wouldn't listen. Or worse, that he would. The next morning, the house felt off, too neat, too still. Aaron had already left for work. His coffee mug was rinsed, his jacket gone, his side of the bed perfectly made. I sat there on the edge, staring at the space he'd left behind, hearing his voice echo in my head. "You need a mirror. It followed me all day." While I made breakfast, I didn't eat. While I answered emails, I couldn't read. Every joke I'd ever made at his expense came rushing back. Every time I'd made him the target just to feel noticed. It wasn't humor. It was armor. Sarcasm had become my way of saying I'm hurting, without sounding weak. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being a shield and started being a weapon. That evening, I cooked dinner. His favorite, roasted chicken with thyme and garlic. I didn't know if he'd come home in the mood to talk or at all. The minutes dragged, the food grew cold. Then, just as I was losing hope, I heard the familiar click of the front door. He didn't look at me when he came in. "Dinner's in the fridge," I said softly, my voice trembling more than I wanted it to. "I made your favorite. Thanks," he muttered, setting his keys on the counter. His tone was polite, detached, like I was a neighbor, not his wife. I watched him for a moment, the distance between us heavier than walls. Then I took a deep breath and said the words I should have said that night. "Aaron, I'm sorry for what I said, for all the times I made you feel small when I should have made you feel loved." He stopped mid-step. For a long second he didn't speak. Then, quietly, he said, "It's not just about last night, Maya. It's about all the nights before it." His voice cracked just a little, and that was somehow worse than anger. "You used to build me up," he continued. "Now it feels like you only look for ways to tear me down." Tears burned my eyes. "I know," I whispered, "and I hate that I became that person. I just felt invisible, Aaron. Like no matter what I did, you were somewhere else. So I tried to make you notice me, even if it meant hurting you." He finally turned toward me. For the first time in days, his eyes met mine. The anger was gone, replaced by something softer, sadder. "We both stopped seeing each other," he said. "You made jokes. I made distance, and we called it love." The honesty in his voice broke something inside me. Because he wasn't accusing me anymore, he was admitting his part too. We stood there, two tired souls surrounded by everything we'd built and everything we'd almost lost. I took a small step forward, and for once, he didn't move away. The silence between us wasn't angry now. It was fragile, like a bridge slowly being rebuilt. But even as my heart softened, fear crept in. Could we really fix this? Or were we too far gone? I looked at him, searching for an answer in his tired eyes. "Do you think we can come back from this?" I asked. Aaron sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "I don't know," he said honestly. "But I think we can stop hurting each other. Maybe that's where it starts." His voice was quiet, but there was hope in it. A flicker, faint but real. Still, as I watched him walk toward the living room, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed forever. And not all changes can be undone. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake listening to the faint hum of the city outside our window, cars passing, wind brushing against the glass, and the quiet rhythm of Aaron's breathing beside me. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't angry. I was just awake, aware. I thought about the years we'd spent together, the anniversaries, the small victories, the silly arguments about nothing that somehow grew into everything. Somewhere along the way, we'd both stopped trying. Maybe we thought love could survive on autopilot. That routine was enough to keep the fire burning. But love isn't a habit. It's a choice, one you have to make every day. The next morning, I woke up early and made coffee. When Aaron came downstairs, there was hesitation in his step, like he didn't know what version of me he'd meet. I handed him a mug and said quietly, "I'm not making jokes today." For the first time in days, he smiled. A small, uncertain smile, but real. "That's a shame," he said softly. Your jokes were starting to grow on me. I smiled back, but my chest tightened. The air between us still felt delicate, like a thread pulled too thin. Yet there was something new in the silence. A kind of peace, fragile but promising. We sat at the table together, sipping our coffee, not saying much. And in that stillness, I realized something. It wasn't grand gestures that fixed love. It was the quiet effort of being seen again, of being gentle when it would have been easier to be cruel. Later that week, we went for a walk, something we hadn't done in months. The autumn air was crisp, the leaves crunching beneath our feet. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then Aaron said, "Do you remember our first date?" You wouldn't stop talking, and I thought I'd never get a word in. I laughed. And you loved it. He looked at me then, really looked, like he was seeing me for the first time in years. Yeah, he said, I did. That look, the one I thought was gone forever, it was there again, faint but real. For the next few weeks, we tried. Not perfectly, not magically, but honestly. We talked more, listened more. Sometimes we still hurt each other without meaning to, but now we caught ourselves before the words went too far. We learned to pause, to breathe, to remember that love doesn't disappear. It just waits for you to show up again. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sun dip behind the rooftops, Aaron turned to me and said, "You know, that night, when you made that joke, I thought it was the end of us." I looked down, my voice low. So did I. He reached for my hand. But maybe it had to break a little. Maybe that was the only way we'd see what we were doing to each other. I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. You were right, Aaron, I did need a mirror. I just didn't realize I'd find it in you. He smiled softly, and I needed to stop hiding behind silence. You're not the only one who forgot how to reach out. The words hung between us like a promise, not of perfection, but of effort, of choosing each other again, one day at a time. As the light faded, he brushed a strand of hair from my face and whispered, "We're not who we were before." But maybe that's a good thing. I leaned my head against his shoulder. Maybe it is. The world felt still again, not cold this time, but calm. Like we'd finally stopped fighting to win and started learning to listen. Maybe that's what love really is. Not never breaking, but breaking and finding your way back, together. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who still believes that love deserves a second chance. Because sometimes the right person isn't new. It's the one who never gave up on you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more heartfelt stories that remind us what real love feels like.